Thank you very much for everybody that's spoken. I think it's been very inspiring and gives a perspective on what's going on. I'm an architect and engineer and an urbanist, and look particularly at the way cities are developed and how they serve the communities at large. So with that, let's move on next. So at its basic level, housing is shelter. And over the history of time, a lot of those shelters have been pretty basic and at best have really allowed us to protect ourselves from the elements. It's also given us a place to go to that is secure. But if you read through the history books, you can, for instance, see what happened with the San Francisco earthquake. They created these earthquake shacks. And these earthquake shacks were, they could be bought for $50, $2 a month. And a lot of them, after the earthquake, there were 5,300 of them. A lot of people took their shacks and started out as buildings, and then they added to them. In the 1950s, for instance, the 50s and 60s, there were the dingbats. And these dingbats were very cheaply built, but were often very airy, light, and had a good amount of area to them, and were very available. And in fact, that was the kind of affordable housing that was produced by retail builders and at a much cheaper cost than we can get affordable housing. One of the things that I think that we need to look at is the alternatives to the kinds of housing that we can develop. So for instance, adaptive reuse. This was the Fuller Paint warehouse. And taking these and dividing them up and creating units is something that can be a very effective way of dealing with these things. So one of the things that we got into was the idea of looking at SROs. This is a project in Santa Monica. And along with SROs, you really do need the community. So you need to think of it as holistically, because you need the third place, because the SRO is a great place to lay your head and keep your things. But in terms of putting community together, which is what we really need to be sustainable, we really need to have that third place. One of the things that we're working with at the moment is the Hostel International. We're using modular units. They're approximately just over 50 feet long and a little over 10 feet wide. And there's basically 2 units with a corridor down the middle. And these things can be built much more cheaply and installed very quickly. And there's a way of really creating a lot of housing. So amongst other things, we're doing regular affordable housing, which is, this is done through inclusionary. We've got to look at ADUs. But I think the issue is that these things cost $500 to $600 a unit. And we need to be producing units at about $200. And part of that has to do with all of the intertwined regulations that make it almost impossible to make housing really affordable, despite the name of affordability. Thank you.